Welcome to another episode of the Flagship podcast. Today I'm excited. So deep down, I don't really talk about this much because I guess maybe because my role in my life doesn't really revolve around it. But I am a big art person, and art has been actually a big part of my story. That again I don't share. I don't know why. But today we have an exciting guest. We have Mandy Spano, correct?
Spano, yes.
Spano. She is the executive director of the Anderson Museum of Art. And so we get to talk a little bit about art today, hear her story. And so welcome, Mandy.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, well, I'm so excited you were able to make the time and have a little bit of chance to share the community with your story, what you do, and yeah, just talk about art. Art's so much fun.
Yeah, yes it is.
So some of the people that are listening probably don't know you or your story. So I always like to start off just giving you a chance to sort of set the stage for us. So you can say whatever you want here.
Okay.
So tell us a little bit about you, how you got here to Anderson and Madison County, and what you do exactly.
Okay. Well, I am a Hoosier. I've been here since I was 2. I actually was born real close to where I used to live in Whittier, California.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm also a California girl at heart because my family still lives there. So I visit
Whittier
often.
Far. Okay. It's a good place to visit.
Yeah.
Most Hoosiers go to Florida. I'm trying to convince my wife and her side of the family, California should be the destination of choice.
I agree. I'm pro Disneyland over Disney World.
Thank God.
Yeah. So, but I mostly have always lived in Indiana.
Okay.
I went to school at USI down in Evansville.
Okay.
My mom would tell you I went as far away in Indiana as possible.
Okay.
But and then I moved to Washington State for several years and
What part of Washington?
Oak Harbor.
Oak Harbor. Okay.
Yeah, so it's an island.
Yeah.
And it's Whidbey Island and a little town, Oak Harbor. It's a military town.
Okay.
And I was privileged to have my first professional job on the island working for the military.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was an amazing job where I got to interact with families, plan events for moms and dads coming home, making sure the kiddos had lots to do, professional development for all the families. It was really great. And that eventually led me to a position with a chamber in Jay County. And I came home.
When did you come back to Indiana?
It's been a while. That was 2010.
Okay.
So I've been back for a while, but I miss my mom.
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair.
So I came back and really enjoyed that experience.
Yeah.
And then eventually I worked for a model airplane organization for about a decade.
A model air.
Yes.
Tell me about that. Okay, hold on. We can't just run by that real quick. So model airplanes. Okay, so are we talking model or are we talking like models?
We're talking both.
Okay,
yes.
both.
Yeah, any unmanned aerial vehicle.
Okay.
So while I was there, the drones became a big thing.
Yeah.
But when I started, it was mostly fixed wing.
Okay.
Fun. It does get very competitive, believe it or not.
Really?
We have world teams that compete in Muncie, Indiana.
That's wild.
Yeah, so I love that place. It was started in 1936, has a long history.
A lot of history there.
Yeah, so I worked there and helped them to develop a foundation, a fundraising arm, because you can use model airplanes for STEM, learning about STEM.
Wow, okay.
And we also would help clubs around the country do good in their communities. So I kind of really found my foot in fundraising at that position.
And it seems also just serving your community.
Yes.
It seems like you have just natural heart.
Yeah.
Because even that first opportunity you talked about on the military base up there, that was all about helping families and things like that. And then it turned into this where it's, again, continuing education, kids, things like that.
Oh, yeah.
And even, I mean, I'm not going to jump the gun. I mean, the audience is waiting to hear what you currently do. But even what you currently do and what I know what you're doing is like all community centric.
Yeah. So, I always knew I couldn't be a nurse.
Okay. Is it blood?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if I can say blood on a podcast.
It's all the things. But I love people.
Okay.
And I felt like, how could I give back? And that was always for me some type of nonprofit work.
Okay.
So I've really enjoyed that. And working at AMA was just awesome because I got an experience where I got to go all over the country all the time, got to meet so many cool people. And actually, I met some people from Anderson because there's a couple people in the community that I kind of looked up to them for their work with endowments. Like Community Hospital, for example.
They do some incredible things.
Yeah. So Tom Bannon is I'm sure he's one of everyone's favorite people, but he's taught me a lot. And so I had a little bit of connection, and Nancy Anderson, I'd met her too. So when the museum was looking for someone, I'll be honest with you, don't ask me to draw or paint.
You don't have a secret talent of art?
So my artistic background is interior design.
Oh, okay.
So
my wife loves that as well, and so that's her thing. And so
great. So I dabbled in having my own company alongside everything else. And so I used to plan weddings and special events, and it was just my thing. And so I've got to do that with all the positions I've held. But I, saw myself being able to find clients and help them, and that also kind of transitions into what I'm doing. And when you plan an event, it's really art too.
It is.
It has to come off just the right way, give you the right feeling. At the end of the day, you look back and it's beautiful. And so that's kind of...
And the picture it creates is memories.
Yes.
And that's what's cool. So this is where we have something in common, because whether it was Flagship or even prior in other career opportunities I've had, event planning has always overlapped in some capacity. And Flagship, we hold an annual pitch competition. And when we were doing our first one, I was like, there has to be a memory and emotion that's conveyed that when people remember it, they remember, and I would say X, Y, and Z, whatever it is. And one of the things, when we did our first one, we had this waiting room outside of our auditorium, and it was a packed house. It was like uncomfortably packed, like shoulder to shoulder, like this room was packed, and everybody was like, can we just open the doors early? I was like, no, we need this for like 10 minutes so they remember, oh, it was packed.
Yeah.
And so I did that same thing what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I wanted to create that memory. And so that's cool that you see that as art, because I've actually never thought of it as an art.
Yeah, and I think that was when I was considering the role and then very interested in the role. I think I conveyed that I see art all around us. I think everyone has...
that's really good.
Yeah, everyone has some kind of artistic talent in a way.
Yeah.
You may not think that you're creative, but I bet. I mean, even... I was talking to a kiddo at Eastside Elementary, and he said that he's not good at art. And I said, do you play video games? Yeah. And I was like, do you play that one video game where you build stuff? Yeah. And then his little friend said, oh my gosh, he's the best one in our whole class. And I said, how is that not art?
Yeah, you're creating.
Right. You're creating, you're having fun. You're sitting back and looking at the product, and you're excited about what you did, and you had a good time.
Yeah.
So.
That's really cool. That's a great perspective. I think I was talking to somebody the other day. It might have actually been part of the Leadership Academy. They were talking about philanthropy. And they were saying, most of the world consists of philanthropists, but nobody would actually claim to be a philanthropist. It's a very small portion.
Yeah.
And I think that's very similar to art. Most of the world would never say, I'm an artist.
Right.
But I think you're hitting on something very unique, which is, I think actually the world consists of many artists that maybe don't consider what they do as an art, but somebody else,
right?
It is the most creative thing they could see.
Right. And I think it also goes back to art appreciation. Often I feel like in our community, some people are a little I don't know, nervous about going to an art museum. I don't know anything about art, but if you can look at the sky and see that the sunset is beautiful, then you have all the experience you need, in my opinion, to come in and enjoy art, because you might see something completely different than I see, and there's no right or wrong. I mean, sometimes the artist will point you in the direction they're going with an artist statement, which I always think is very helpful. But I think that that's a big part of it too. It's just being able to sit back and appreciate what you can do, but also what others can do.
That's really good. So currently, we shared that you're the executive director of the Anderson Museum of Art. Tell us a little bit about your day to day. What you find fun. I know a little bit, at least one gal on your team, and she is just a ball of joy.
Yeah.
Tell me about your day to day. What you do, the things you love, maybe the challenges you guys are facing. You guys throw incredible events, and your space is just beautiful. But you take it away.
Well, so we are in a beautiful space, but we're actually the space was built in 1905. So
over 100 years old.
Yes.
That's wild.
So often I'm dealing with challenges to keep the building up and running.
Yeah.
But that's all part.
Managing a facility in itself is miserable. Let's be real. Let's talk about that for a second, because Flagship's only 20 years old, our building.
Okay.
And every day there's just something new, whether it's one of our skylights are leaking or something like that. Thankfully, we have an incredible facilities manager, but I can't even imagine for a 100-year-old building. Yeah.
And I'm not a facility, I don't have that experience, but I've learned a lot about HVAC and boilers, very, very old boilers. But we have really great community partners that kind of help us. So day to day, I do a lot with trying to market the museum, to build partnerships for the museum. Yeah. We have this amazing staff that we're all so different, but we all just love what we do, and we love the organization and our community. So we work together to plan all the events, the classes, the big crazy ideas that I kind of often think of, and people at first think I'm crazy, but we make it happen.
Well, again, that's your art form.
Yes,
that's your art form. You create through experience.
Yes. So I would say managing the staff, but they're all such go-getters that they all come to the table with great ideas, and they're all willing to work really hard. And the team we have is let's go out into the community and hand out candy. And then we're well, we got to get candy donated. So
that's part of working for a nonprofit.
Yes,
that's so real.
So altogether, though, our main core goal right now is just to make our museum more accessible.
Okay.
And to make art more accessible.
Define accessible. I would love to hear what you mean by that.
So I mentioned it before of, maybe people being a little nervous to go into a art gallery. But
that sounds intimidating.
Right.
Yeah.
But we're not intimidating. We really focus on local artists. We do have other shows where we bring in artists from other areas, but most of our shows feature local artists. Okay. And we like to celebrate them. We celebrate students working with our local art association, the Art Association of Madison County. Okay. They have a student show.
Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah, and high school students just have art all over the museum, and then they bring their families, and it's the most crowded time of the year, and it's amazing. Yeah. And it's wonderful. It's so fabulous. So we are really trying to keep that going. Okay. So you may not have ever thought you could do a stained glass piece, but guess what? You can. Or we're doing another fiber arts exhibit this year. So
what's fiber arts? So
fiber arts is working with fibers furs and hairs.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we had a great exhibit the year before last. And so we're just doing a number 2 this year with different featured artists, but also a call for artists, because you'd be so surprised how many people locally
do art.
Yeah.
They just don't, they don't tell the world.
Yeah. There's artists that, paint these beautiful contemporary pieces, but then they'll bring in a piece with, yarn and, and you're how do you know how to do both?
Yeah.
But
that's really cool.
Yeah. We have so many people that can do it all. So yeah, we're just trying, when I say accessible, I mean You have a chance to show your art in a museum.
You want it to be normal.
Yes.
You don't want it to be a niche thing or somebody have to feel like am I even qualified? You just want it to be a normal part of everyday life.
Right.
That art museum, art in the community, people practicing art.
Yes.
It's just what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. And you might enter a piece and maybe it doesn't make it because we have certain parameters.
Sure.
But we have opportunities for you to advance your skills. We have other exhibits that maybe would be a better fit. So we do like to show really great work locally. And we're pretty blessed here to have so many people that can bring that to the museum. And we also rotate our exhibits a lot. So we want everyone to have something that they might be interested in seeing.
Yeah. How often do you guys rotate?
Every 3 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
A lot.
so that gives a lot of opportunity for the community.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the last time I was in there, I actually bought a piece from your guys' store. I don't know who it's done by, so maybe you can shed some light. But it's the compilation of the city of Anderson, sort of like a crowded thing of all the landmarks and things that have happened.
So those are landmark prints, which we've had for forever.
They're so cool.
Yeah, so
it's literally hanging in my living room.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Yeah, we sell those. We had those held back, and we thought, those are pretty cool. Let's take them out and sell them. So and people like them.
they're really cool.
Yeah.
And so me and my wife, she wouldn't claim it out loud, but she's the artist of the family. She's a painter. She's done that for years, but she doesn't like to tell people.
Okay.
And as we've been redoing our house, she's like, can we have a little art section in the corner? I'm like, of course. It'd be cool to not just have our kids grow up in that type of environment, but also to give her an outlet to get back into doing art. I think some of my, when I was a young, a high schooler, I was a pretty troubled teen. I, flunked out my freshman year of high school. I grew up in bad areas. But the first person who helped me start to identify some of those skills was actually my art teacher. Patricia Lemon, Miss Lemon.
Nice.
And so I'm going to give her a shout out. She probably doesn't listen and doesn't remember me, and that's okay. But she saw something and she helped me see the world in a new way. And so I love doing graphite pieces and things like that. Again, cool. I wouldn't claim to be an artist, but that helped me express myself in ways that I noticed that I loved doing pieces that had a lot of detail and complexity in small areas. Mm-hmm. And it was just something that allowed me to express myself at a time where I didn't know how to express myself.
That's fantastic. And that you're really touching on something that's I don't know, so important to me at AMOA. We are working on plans for our downstairs space. And you've been down there?
I haven't been downstairs. Okay. I've only been on the main floor.
Okay, so a lot of people listening will remember our building as the library.
Okay.
And downstairs is the Peter Pan room. And
is there actually a Peter Pan room?
There's still the little bronze plate on the wall.
Really?
But people remember coming and having stories read to them and, going, just riding their bikes to the library and hanging out. And people will come in and ask to come in my office and see my fireplace because they remember sitting by it.
That's really cool.
Which is really cool. But the space has continued to be a children's space over the years.
Okay.
We have a classroom and then kind of an interactive space that right now was developed kind of to think outside that STEAM.
Okay. Yeah, STEAM,
So this space is awesome. And we're how could we use this best for our community? So all the research, all the studies that everyone's doing, mental health is, way up there, if not number one on everyone,
totally.
Right? So
it's become a normal conversation, talking about normal.
Yes. And like you mentioned, the arts can be so helpful when you're
absolutely.
Right? You're looking for something to make you maybe just feel, right?
That's a good thing you just hit on right there.
Yeah.
Some people don't know how to feel.
Right.
And it's people listening might be like, that's weird. Everybody feels. And it's sure, we feel something, but we don't know how to actually engage with that.
Right.
That was me for years. It's been years of, I want to, probably the Lord working through in my life, but also the people that God has brought me to help me work through of what are healthy and good feelings.
Right.
And how do you feel it well?
Yeah. And I think now kiddos are faced with more than, I'm guessing I'm much older than you, but like when I was a kid, we didn't have even a cable TV until I was much older. So I didn't have the social media and all the things that kids deal with, and screen all the time. And so that's taking away, I think, some of our communication, some of our feeling.
100%.
Right? So we thought, what could we do to use the arts to kind of help our community? And so what we're looking at is building a children's museum type plan where you learn through play, but everything will be arts-based.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and when I say arts, I don't just mean visual arts, which is right now our baby.
It's how we define it, yeah.
Right? It will be music and theater and dance and architecture, design, so that, So
all the above.
Yes.
Again, what you were talking about earlier, like art isn't so narrowly defined. I think our culture has come to define it as, oh, do you paint, draw, or maybe sculpt? That's art. Yeah. It's like art's bigger than that.
Right. It is bigger than that. And we want to not only show our kids and our families that, but let them experience everything so that they can see what they're feeling. And then we're also going to have a middle section that right now we're calling the You Matter Circle.
Matter Circle, okay.
And that's all about learning about yourself and learning about others. So, for example,
I feel like that's needed for a lot of adults too.
Yeah, I mean, adults are going to be able to come.
Good. Our community needs that. I definitely need time to remember that too.
But I mean, like for me, I grew up in a little town, right? So I never even met a child that was in a wheelchair. So like, I didn't have any understanding of what their life was like, how they change and adapt and all those things, or other races. I mean, little tiny town in Indiana, I had no exposure. So I think that sometimes we just need to be introduced to others.
Totally.
We see how we're the same. We see what we have in common, and we see how we can be better and be better people in our community to help everyone. So I'm really excited about the opportunity to do that through the arts and play.
Well, I think you hit on something important, because like, I even think like, so I shared this off camera, but I mean, I'm from California, and coming to the Midwest, I didn't realize, like, for me, diversity and learning about, like, I just grew up around a bunch of different people, whether you're, African-American, Hispanic, Asian, go down the different list. Like, that was just a normal thing in SoCal. Like, it's just a melting pot over there. Coming to the Midwest, it was like, oh, this is very different. Like, I'm not used to this. Like, and so like, realizing that, I think for years I took advantage of the fact that, oh, this is just normal. I didn't know anything else except this. When I was much younger, I grew up in Tennessee, like my childhood, in a small town called Cottontown, Tennessee, like population like 200 people. It was like boondocks. But my dad's Indian and my mom is white, and so it was an interracial couple, and we dealt with some challenges down there. But then in SoCal, it was very, very different. It was just normal that you see different backgrounds, different diversities, different challenges of life. Like, it was all just, you saw everything. And then coming here to the Midwest, where it's just like, oh, there are people here who have never seen something different. They have one landscape, and this is all they experience. I think it's important to get that worldview, to know that, hey, these other cultures, these other people groups, these other life challenges, all those things exist, and they all provide a value of different perspectives and things that we need to bring to the table on a more consistent basis. Yeah,
and also understanding like how small this world is.
It is very small.
We see it all the time. Like we found out that your wife is like related to my mom's friend or something.
Yes. I totally forgot about that.
And so it's like, oh, the world's so small. And I have like a best friend that I found out is my husband's cousin's sister-in-law. And that's weird.
It's so random when those things happen.
Right. And so, and right now I have a exchange student living with us from Thailand. And, I love culture and learning about culture, but she has taught me so many things I did not know.
You realize how much you don't know once you start like being open to learning.
Yes. I think if we like just give everyone a place to learn about all the different things so that they can get a little understanding. And even if it's, I really liked standing on that stage, and that was cool. I like to sing in front of other people. We have Main Stage and Alley Theater and all these different outlets, and with music we have Plain Song. So you might see your kiddo just thriving with learning to play a little bit of an instrument, and maybe they have some behavioral concerns, but when they're playing that instrument, they seem to be at ease. So we can say we have partners over at Plain Song that can take this further because they are, the professionals. We're wanting to be the fun and kind of the first step to provide families with other resources.
Well, and knowing you and your team, you guys embody fun. Like, it's what you guys do. And so anybody who knows you guys in the community, it's just natural to you. And I think that's great. I think of something like the Strength Finder where, it's good to work on your weaknesses. Don't get me wrong. I think we always should be growing and learning. But, like, if you do something really well, lean into it. Yeah. Let the world be blessed by what you have and use that for the community. And I think you guys do that phenomenally. And so, speaking of that, I'm going to change the topic a tad bit because I'm gonna brag on you a bit to the audience and say, like, recently you got an award as what was it, the High Expectations Award.
Oh, yes. with the Boy Scouts.
Yes. And so because you are somebody who's been involved with the community and people see what you are presenting and they see, like, hey, there's a lot more good coming from you. And
no pressure, right?
No pressure. Yeah, I just want to remind you, we're all watching. And so, but with that, again, like, you are doing a lot in the community and people are seeing it. Maybe even for some other younger leaders who are coming up and maybe getting that acknowledgement. How do you navigate that as an individual that you want to lead the community, but you also how do you navigate the attention and those types of things? Tell me a little bit about that experience.
Well, I've had this conversation with a lot of other executive directors in town.
Okay.
Often they say Mandy and her team, but it's my team, like our team. I have some people that are working with me that are just fantastic, and I might have the original idea, but then they pick up the pieces. Like Mystery at the Museum is a great example. Stephanie on our team, she's one of those people that's artsy, but also like sciencey. Like her brain is amazing. And so I could say like pink and a hole in the wall, and she'd be like, oh, we're going to get that there like this. Like, it's just fantastic. So I think that you have to have a good team in place. And so part of that is understanding. I think that you have to have people with passion that are willing to learn and are interested in going big. And that's kind of always been my headspace when I was interviewing for this job. The board was like, we're going to do this event where we like jump off a building for charity, And I thought, oh yeah, sign me up, because they're willing to take chances. And I think you have to be willing to take the chances, but sometimes it doesn't always work out right. So you have to be able to sit back and reconfigure what you're doing and come up with a new plan. So for me, it's like,
be flexible for the change.
Yeah. So, and that's, again, having a board that's willing to be on that ride with you, and a team, and then also having people around you in the community. I have to say, when I came here, that I was just overwhelmed by the support. I mean, there's people that have been here forever that were right there welcoming me, encouraging me. And they want the museum to be a big part of our community, and they want it to do well. So they've been helping me throughout the way. So I think if you're, young and trying to get in there, just meet people,
network, build a community.
Yeah. And find the time to get to know other people and their skills and learn from them. Like, they might be younger than you, they might have less experience than you, but they might have had an experience that could really impact you. And
Yeah.
You never know too. Like, I don't know about you, but sometimes I'll see something on TV and it has absolutely nothing to do with what I want to do, but they'll say something and I'll be like, yes. And you never know when that's going to happen when you're having a conversation.
It's just a spark of inspiration for yourself.
Yes.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You mentioned, well, actually, I'll mention the time first before I ask this next question. We probably have about 5 to 10 minutes left, so just want to respect your time there. But you mentioned you love going big. I'm the same way. I love going big, getting a good splash. But I've heard a lot of people talk about a skill set you have that is more detailed, and a lot of people, it's a lost art. And it's writing notes.
Oh.
And yes. I've heard some incredible stories of people receiving notes from you that are so thoughtful and detailed about things that you saw in them or remembered that they were like, how did she remember that?
Yeah.
And because that to a lot of people, that's not going big. That's like a very detailed, small thing, and nobody really thinks about sending notes anymore. It's not. It's a lost art. Talk about art. It's a lost art.
Yeah.
One of my bosses years ago taught me this skill set, and I unfortunately am not consistent. I try to write notes, to people that are on my list like once a quarter. So I try to get them out, but I've just heard incredible stories of that skill set of yours. Tell me a little bit about that. Why you do it? How you remember these things. Like, do you take note? Do you have a journal that like you're like, okay, I want to make sure I remember this. Like, help us learn this skill set of note taking note writing, because I think some of the most impactful relationships I've built was because either I just took 5 minutes or 2 minutes to really write a note and just say thank you for letting me get to know you, or I received something and I was like, why did they take the time for me? And it was impactful. So
right.
I'll throw the ball into your court now.
Well, I would say, like, just to start, my mom.
Okay.
If you had a birthday party and you got a present, you wrote a thank you note.
Okay, she ingrained it in you.
Yes, she did.
Okay.
And my grandma would have done the same.
Okay.
My grandma was very specific about making sure you knew that she was just happy to share space with you. So she lived in Whittier, and going to see her was like my favorite thing ever, because when I was with her, I just felt she made me feel like the most important person. And I always want people to know how much I appreciate them, whether it's, you thinking of me today. Like, that's so awesome that you were kind enough to think of me, think of the museum.
I mean, thank you for giving us the time. It's great having you on here. I mean, you're doing incredible things, but I love the word you just used. It was like you said, your grandma made you feel like the most important person in that moment. I think that's an incredible skill set. I'm terrible at it. You can ask my wife. But trying to be present with somebody like this and make them feel that in that moment of time, they are the most important person to you.
Yeah.
It's hard to do. And you mentioned screens earlier and like technology, and that doesn't help us.
No.
We are constantly detached and our mind's in another place when we're present with somebody here.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know. For me, I'm sure you've heard of the 5 love languages.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So mine is gifts, but before anyone like judges me,
she's on guard.
It's just someone taking the time to like think of you, really. So for me, it's like, I just want you to know that I did think of you. And so often whenever I'm going to write a note or send an email or whatever it is, it's not really a checklist kind of thing. But it just sticks with me, because I think that we live in this society that's like, kind of like me, my time. I'm so busy. Everything's going on. Blah, blah, blah. I have kids everywhere.
Absolutely.
And this, that. So if like you can give me like 5 minutes of your time, or, coming up here in the future, we have a Mystery at the Museum event. I have 12 people in the community giving up their time to be investigators for us. And I know that every single one of them is busy, like busy.
Yeah.
And they're doing that to do something for a good cause. And they're bringing their game. I mean, these people go all out, build personalities, everything. And I don't know. I'm just so thankful, because they don't have to do that.
So it sounds like it's not I mean, you said it verbatim. It's not a checklist for you.
Right.
But it sounds like you practice gratitude.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about that one, because I think a lot of people talk about the idea, be thankful or be grateful or things like that. But like, maybe is there I don't know, maybe I'm trying to systemize it too much. Is there like a life rule you have, or like a practice? Like, how do you make sure you're putting gratitude in front of you on a daily basis? Because it's, again, I get so quick. Like I'm such a fast paced person that something will happen and it's already gone.
Yeah.
I'm like, I should have probably remembered to thank that person for opening the door for me, or something, just something small like that.
Right.
But how do you practice gratitude consistently?
I think it goes back to just my faith. I believe that God gave us all our own talents and abilities, and we all have a purpose in this world. And, I'm good at a few things here and there, but like my husband's an engineer. I could never, ever, ever, ever do that. But, I can tell someone they're awesome. I can take a day or take some time and like think about, the blessings of the day. So instead of like being like, wow, this was such a bad day, like this happened, this happened, I instead think of like little glitters throughout the day. So, like we're in an old building. Oh my gosh, the air conditioning worked for a whole week. Like that. I mean, if you wake up every day and you want to look at everything that goes right instead of what goes wrong, and take a second to like really take that in and cherish it, you're going to live just a much happier, upbeat life. And
really powerful.
Yeah. And I'm lucky because Jeanette, you mentioned,
I
always thought that I was really a lot of personality and a lot of glitter and fluff until I met Jeanette.
Hey, anybody listening, you need to meet Jeanette. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. You need to meet Jeanette. That's all I can say.
Yeah, she's a beautiful spirit that, I mean, you could say like, oh, it's beautiful out today. And she'd be like, oh, I know.
It's true. It's like, I haven't even known her that long, and I got a birthday card and a box of Oreos. It was just like, what? How did you even know it was my birthday? Somehow she found out, and it was there. Yeah,
someone asked us the other day, they asked me, do you guys like celebrate birthdays at Amoa? And I just like,
it's more than serious? A celebration. It's more than like, do you know who works there?
Like, does the whole town not know we're having a birthday cake? Like, yeah. So, but yeah, I really try. And I also have my office is all decorated in Disney. So that really helps too.
Having your environment a place that perpetuates a certain emotion, or again, going back to art. It's all it is. Yes. You turned your space into art.
Yes, I did. Yeah. And I was clear on what I wanted to do. I wanted it to be a fun space, and people will come to see all my Disney collection, but I also have like blueprints from rides and different things. So it's like really cool. And, Mary Poppins said, and every...
No, quote it. Let's do it.
With every element, with all the work that must be done, there should always be an element of fun.
I think that's a great way to end the podcast.
Yeah.
That's so good. And this, I love, for me, this is fun. Getting to know you, getting to just have a conversation. It doesn't feel like work. We just get to talk and have a good time and get to know the community. And so, I think we'll end there. And, on that point of gratitude, thank you so much for making the time. Thank you for being willing to be a voice for the community, being willing to pour into it, create a space for people to express themselves, to be able to feel like it's safe to express themselves, that there is joy in diverse opinions, diverse backgrounds, diverse life experiences. And so having an outlet through art, whatever that may mean, I think is really cool that you're cultivating that for our community. So thank you for doing that. I guess any last things you want the audience to know about the art museum, about you, anything you want to leave them with, maybe a charge of gratitude or a charge of be artistic, or I'll leave it up to you.
Yeah. So I always tell people Amoa is where we inspire creativity. So I think that everyone should just come check it out. I know so many people in this community have never even been to the museum, and it's a real gem in our community. So come celebrate art, and maybe you'll get the bug to try something, you know?
Well, thank you, Mandy, so much for your time. Thank you all for tuning into this episode. Please like, share, subscribe to this as we continue to bring voices on that represent our community well. Thank you all, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Flagship podcast, sponsored by Pinnacle Systems. Visit our YouTube channel for the full-length video podcast, or find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. New podcasts are posted every month, featuring local leaders from Central Indiana. For more content, follow us on social media at Flagship Enterprise Center. Until next time, thanks for listening.